Alright, movie fam, let's talk about the movie that's got the entire internet on fire, Man of Tomorrow. James Gunn dropped the bombshell announcement that Superman's next big outing is hitting theaters on July 9th, 2027. And in true Gunn fashion, he didn't just give us a title, he gave us a whole vibe. We got Jim Lee artwork showing Lex Luthor in his iconic warsuit, standing side by side with Superman holding a screwdriver, as if the two of them are working together instead of throwing punches.
He wasn't some dopey Venusian catapulted onto this planet just to have the world fawn over him, because his strength illuminates how weak we all really are.
And that single image has fans spinning out theory after theory. Because if Superman and Lex are teaming up, it can only mean one thing. There's a bigger, scarier threat on the horizon. Now here's where it gets even spicier. Gunn himself confirmed that Peacemaker Season 2 will act as a direct prequel to Man of Tomorrow, planting seeds that will pay off in Superman's story. So it's not just a random sequel, it's the next cornerstone in the new DC universe. And while we don't know the full plot yet, what we do know is this: it's setting up Superman in a darker, more mythic tone, exploring how he fits into a world where heroes and villains might have to put aside their differences to survive. So that brings us to the million-dollar question. If Lex and Superman are in cahoots this time, who's the bigger bad they're going up against? Well, today I'm breaking down my top 5 picks for the villain of Man of Tomorrow, ranked from least likely to most likely. And trust me, every one of these picks is going to have you rethinking what this movie could be about. We're talking cosmic masterminds, bone-crushing monsters, twisted mirror images, and maybe even Kryptonian warlords. I'll also throw in some honorable mentions, villains who might pop up in cameos or get teased for the future. And finally, I'll land on my number 1 pick, the baddie who makes the most sense narratively, thematically, and cinematically. So whether you're a die-hard comic reader or someone who just knows Superman wears a cape and saves the day, this list is for you. And stick around until the end, because the last theory might just change the way you look at the title Man of Tomorrow itself. If you like to gobble up DC content and fan theories like me, be sure to hit the subscribe button and like the video if you, well, like the video. So let's get into it. Number 5, Brainiac, least likely.
You can't have Earth, Brainiac.
It would fare better under your regime.
In every way that matters.
Brainiac. Now, if you're new to Superman lore, Brainiac is one of his most infamous villains. He's not just some muscle-bound alien or rogue Kryptonian. He's a hyper-intelligent, cold, calculating AI overlord who roams the universe, collecting civilizations like action figures. Whole cities bottled, planets destroyed. He's terrifying because he doesn't just punch. He strategizes, and in a way that even Lex Luthor has to respect. Here's why Brainiac could show up in Man of Tomorrow. James Gunn has straight up admitted in past interviews that Brainiac was his original pick for the villain in Superman 2025. That's right, before we even got David Corenswet's debut as Clark Kent, Gunn was already eyeing this green-skinned collector as the kind of baddie who could define his DCU. So naturally, fans are thinking, if not then, maybe now. And story-wise, it tracks. Imagine Superman and Lex, two of Earth's smartest and strongest defenders, forced to unite against an alien intellect that makes even Luthor look small. The warsuit makes sense. The screwdriver makes sense. But here's the catch. Brainiac isn't just a one-movie villain. He's a Justice League-level threat. Someone like him needs build-up, groundwork, multiple chapters to pay off properly. Drop him in Man of Tomorrow as the main villain, and you risk burning through one of DC's biggest bads too soon. We might see Brainiac's shadow in this movie. Maybe Lex uncovering alien tech that points toward Brainiac. Maybe a hint that he's pulling strings from the stars. But as the final boss of Man of Tomorrow, that feels less likely. He's the kind of villain you tease now and unleash later in a team-up film, not the guy you blow through in Superman's second chapter. Still, even a cameo or foreshadowing of Brainiac would send chills down spines. And let's be real, if Gunn drops even one scene of Brainiac's skull ship hovering over Earth, the internet will explode. Number 4, Doomsday. Now, everybody knows Doomsday as the guy who killed Superman. He's the monster that crawled out of the ground in the comics and forced Superman to literally fight him to the death. And yes, Zack Snyder already gave us his take in Batman vs. Superman. That was just the cliff note. The real Doomsday? He's way worse. Let's dip into some recent comic lore. In the 2019 storyline Doomsday Clock and later arc, we see Doomsday evolved into something even more terrifying. His entire origin revolves around being experimented on by Kryptonian scientists, killed over and over again, resurrected each time, and adapting so he can never be killed the same way twice. Over centuries, he's become a creature that can shrug off anything, radiation, magic, and in Rebirth stories, there's an even scarier version, one where Doomsday retains a flicker of intelligence. He's not just smashing things anymore, he's strategic, almost cunning. Even Superman and Lex together would struggle with. Here's why he makes sense for Man of Tomorrow. Doomsday is the kind of one-shot villain that could carry a whole movie. He doesn't need a long build-up like Brainiac. You drop him on Earth, you unleash chaos, and you give us 2+ hours of jaw-dropping destruction. Imagine Metropolis under siege, Lex piloting his warsuit, Superman throwing everything he has at this monster and still realizing it might not be enough. Visually, it would be insane. But there's a problem. The Doomsday story is tied to Superman's death. It's his most famous arc, and James Gunn isn't going to kill off Superman in just his second outing. We literally just met David Corenswet's Clark Kent. No way Gunn sends him back to the grave this early, especially after how divisive Batman v Superman was. So Doomsday for me feels like a strong contender, but not the main event. He could appear as an opening threat, a mid-movie oh crap moment, or even as a weapon Lex accidentally unleashes before realizing they need to team up to stop it. But as the final boss of Man of Tomorrow, less likely. Still, the idea of an evolved, semi-intelligent Doomsday rampaging across the screen while Superman and Lex are forced to work shoulder to shoulder, that's popcorn cinema at its finest. And let's be honest, if Gunn wanted to flex pure spectacle, Doomsday is the guy to call. Number 3. Lobo. Now, if you're not too familiar with this guy, let me paint the picture. Imagine Wolverine's attitude, Deadpool's humor, and Thor's strength, all cranked up, then thrown into space with a flying motorcycle. That's Lobo. And he's one of Superman's most dangerous opponents because he isn't just strong, he's relentless. The guy has survived being blown to bits, banished from dimensions, even dismembered, and thanks to his insane healing factor, he just keeps coming back. You don't kill Lobo. At best, you annoy him until he gets bored. Here's why Lobo actually has a real shot at appearing in Man of Tomorrow. First off, Gunn has been planting seeds already. Lobo is heavily rumored to be showing up in the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow movie in 2026. Second, he's actually tied to the original Man of Tomorrow storyline in the comics. Lobo and Superman have thrown down before, and it always makes for an epic clash, because Superman's idealism clashes perfectly with Lobo's nihilistic who cares, let's fight attitude. Imagine Lex in his warsuit trading punches with Lobo while Superman's trying to keep both of them from leveling Metropolis. That's not just a fight scene, that's a fan event. Lobo might be too big of a character to burn as a one-movie villain. He's the type of guy you want hanging around in the DCU long-term. He's funny, marketable, and flexible. Sometimes he's Superman's enemy, sometimes he's his reluctant ally, sometimes he's just in it for the paycheck. Killing him off in Man of Tomorrow would be a waste. So here's my take. Lobo could absolutely appear in the movie, maybe even spar with Superman or cause chaos on Earth, but as the final villain, less likely. He's not the kind of threat you resolve in one film. More likely he shows up as a wild card, or maybe even part of a bigger team-up gone wrong. And honestly, if Gunn wants a heavy metal, neon-drenched fight sequence in the middle of his movie, Lobo is the perfect excuse. Superman trying to hold back, Lex blasting away with tech, and Lobo grinning through the smoke like, "Is that all you got, ya bastich?" That's cinema. Number 2. Bizarro.
What am me?
Bizarro, that's what you am.
If you're new to him, here's the quick rundown. Bizarro is basically Superman's twisted reflection. Same powers but broken. Same face but distorted. In the comics, he often speaks in backward phrases. He's not just a physical challenge. He's a living parody of Superman. And that's what makes him such an intriguing threat. He forces Superman to literally fight a warped version of himself. Now, why does Bizarro make sense for Man of Tomorrow? Let's connect some dots. Remember in Superman 2025 how Ultraman got sucked into a black hole? We never saw what happened to him. And you know what happens when black holes and comic books collide? Reality-bending transformations. It's entirely possible Ultraman mutates into something far stranger, something twisted and unstable. We've got a DCU version of Bizarro. Lore-wise, Bizarro has been portrayed in a ton of ways. Sometimes he's a failed Superman clone created by Lex Luthor. Sometimes he's a warped version from another universe. Sometimes he's just chaos given form. James Gunn could lean into any of those versions. But the idea of him being tied to Ultraman's black hole fate? That's both poetic and practical. It ties Man of Tomorrow back to the first Superman film, while also setting up a villain who's both terrifying and tragic. And narratively, it's perfect. Lex Luthor, who spent his entire life hating Superman, suddenly realizes he can't stand Bizarro either, because this isn't the alien invader he despises. It's a broken mirror of that alien, a chaotic force that could destroy everything. That gives Lex and Superman a shared enemy, because Lex gets to play savior while still keeping his anti-Superman agenda intact. Visually, Bizarro is a director's dream. Imagine Corrin Sweat in a twisted, pale, cracked-skinned version of the Superman suit. Heat vision that spirals out of control. Ice breath that turns entire city blocks into wastelands. He's not just a villain, he's Superman's powers without Superman's heart. That's scary. Why isn't he number one? He's unpredictable. Gunn may not want to play the evil Superman card so early in the DCU, especially with Marvel already tackling multiversal variants left and right. But if Gunn does go there, Bizarro would be one of the most visually stunning, narratively rich choices for Man of Tomorrow. So yeah, seeing Superman and Lex forced to stop Bizarro before he tears apart Metropolis. That's not just a good story, that's a gut punch of cinema. Before we hit number one, let's take a quick detour, because the DC universe is stacked with villains who could theoretically show up in Man of Tomorrow. They might not be the big bad, but they're worth keeping on your radar. Parasite. This purple nightmare has one terrifying ability. He absorbs Superman's powers with a single touch. In the comics, he's nearly drained Clark dry more than once, and Gunn could use him as an opening act, a mid-movie fight that forces Lex and Superman to realize they'll need to work together for the real threat. Metallo. If Lex is suiting up in his warsuit, why not throw in another armored foe? Metallo is powered by kryptonite and has given Superman some of his hardest-hitting brawls. He could show up as Lex's failed experiment, or maybe even as an early villain before the bigger bad arrives. Mr. Mempsistalk, the fifth dimension imp himself. He's more mischievous than malicious, but imagine a James Gunn directed sequence of Superman dealing with a reality-warping prankster who could literally bend physics. He's probably not the main villain, but a cameo? Oh, fans would eat that up. Toyman. Okay, hear me out. Toyman is not a world destroyer, but in a Gunn-directed film, he could be reimagined as something much darker. Think creepy gadgets, drones, AI nightmares. More of a side distraction than a headline act, but worth mentioning. So yeah, Parasite, Metallo, Mempsistalk, Toyman. All fun possibilities, but none of them feel quite big enough to justify Superman and Lex teaming up for a whole movie. Which brings us to number one, the villain who makes the most narrative, thematic, and cinematic sense for Man of Tomorrow. Number one, General Zod.
You believe your son is safe? I will find him. I will reclaim what you have taken from us.
Now I know what some of you are already typing in the comments, but Zod's been done before. Michael Shannon nailed it. Why recycle him? Hear me out. Because not only does Zod fit narratively, he might just be the perfect villain to push Superman, Lex, and the entire DCU forward. First off, Zod isn't just another Kryptonian. He's a living nightmare of Krypton's past. Bred as a warrior, programmed for annihilation, Zod represents everything Clark could have become if he'd been raised under Krypton's doctrine instead of Earth's compassion. That alone makes him the ultimate foil. A reminder that Superman isn't just fighting villains, he's fighting what his people once stood for. Second, Zod checks the boxes for both Superman and Lex. To Superman, Zod is a physical and moral challenge. Stronger, smarter, more ruthless. with the same powers but none of the restraint. To Lex, though, Zod is the embodiment of his greatest fear, an alien invader who doesn't hide behind smiles and kindness, but openly seeks humanity's destruction. If Superman terrifies Lex as a potential conqueror, then Zod terrifies him as the real deal. That gives Lex a rock-solid reason to set aside his ego and team up with Clark. And narratively, it writes itself. Imagine Zod arriving on Earth with a mission to terraform the planet, wipe out humanity, and resurrect Krypton in its place. Superman steps in because he loves Earth. Lex steps in because he wants to own Earth. Both need each other to stop Zod, but only one of them cares about what happens after the fight. That tension is gold. Now here's where it gets wild. Rumor mill whispers have tied none other than Bradley Cooper to the role of Zod. If that's true, holy moly, buckle up, because Cooper has the charisma to sell Zod not just as a warlord, but as a leader with conviction, the kind of villain you hate but almost understand. And let's not forget the breadcrumb from Superman 2025. Remember that broken message Kal-El received, supposedly from Jor-El? What if that wasn't Jor-El at all? What if it was Zod manipulating Clark, luring him toward his plan, making Zod not just a random antagonist, but a payoff from the very beginning? Finally, thematically, Zod fits the title, Man of Tomorrow, because in this story, each of our players embodies it in their own way. Superman is the man of tomorrow who represents hope. Lex, angling for public glory and maybe even a shot at the presidency, sees himself as Earth's man of tomorrow. And Zod, he's the man of tomorrow for Krypton, a dark future built on blood and domination. That's not just epic storytelling, that's poetic. So yes, Zod may be overused to some, but in Man of Tomorrow, with the right actor, the right script, and Gunn's knack for blending spectacle with character depth, Zod could be the villain that unites Superman and Lex, pushes their rivalry to new heights, and delivers the kind of blockbuster that cements 2027 as the greatest movie year of all time. So there you have it, folks. My top 5 picks for who the real big bad of Man of Tomorrow could be. From Brainiac lurking in the shadows, to a reimagined Doomsday, the wild card that is Lobo, the twisted mirror of Bizarro, and finally, the Kryptonian juggernaut himself, Zod. James Gunn is nothing if not unpredictable. Maybe he's playing it literally, and the title Man of Tomorrow means we'll see Superman time traveling into the future, teaming up with Lex against an enemy we can't even imagine yet. Or maybe a future version of Lex comes back to warn or manipulate Clark. The possibilities are endless. Or maybe all of this speculation is just smoke and mirrors Superman versus Lex in his warsuit, duking it out in a battle of ideals and fists. Too early to be sure, but that's half the fun, isn't it? What we do know is this: Man of Tomorrow is shaping up to be the centerpiece of 2027's insane movie calendar, and the internet is going to keep buzzing until we get that first trailer. So, movie fam, now it's your turn. Who do you think Superman and Lex are teaming up against? Parasite? Mongol? Maybe even Mr. Mex Wise Talk pulling strings from the 5th dimension? Drop your theories in the comments below, smash that like button if you're hyped for the DCU, and don't forget to subscribe for more Holly Molly deep dives. Because one thing's for sure, when Man of Tomorrow lands in theaters on July 9th, 2027, it's going to shake the entire superhero game, and man, I can't wait.